Hey,
Hey, how's it going?
yeah, it's going pretty good. How are you doing?
Good. I just got back from a little trip with friends. Sort of learned how to ski.
Oh yeah, that's
So,
cool.
yeah.
Lake
Yeah.
Tahoe is the closest. Is that where you went?
I went to like near like Salt Lake City.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Now I'm
Yeah,
back.
I worked a bit on. I'm making like a model in Blender of my childhood home, and I worked a bit on that this
Cool.
past week, just a couple
That's
times.
cool. I remember
Yeah, the
you mentioning that.
difficulty.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm adding like just block furniture, and now I'm trying to color stuff, and I chose like a nice color palette, but I don't know how well I'll be able to color everything.
Yeah. Are you doing it from like references or from memory?
Yeah, from memory, but then I'm not gonna be super accurate with colors because it would just be kind of insane. So I'm
Yeah,
trying to figure out like a balance between like as minimal as possible, but with nice colors, but not. Yeah, maybe I can get like if I get the lighting just correct so that everything kind of has the same level of polish everywhere, then it'll be. I think it'll be interesting for something. I haven't even figured out exactly what I'll do with it yet, but I
yeah.
feel like my Blender skill has kind of improved just as I've been doing this modeling, the like going through the motions, learning a few new tools. I learned how to like split like a face and then color only part of like one face of a flat surface.
That's
And
cool. Yeah.
yeah, so
I would love to learn that.
yeah, it was there's a lot of it's easy to like forget things in Blender. There's like 5 steps for some actions and then you
Mhm.
can become like fast at it, but then as soon as I stop using it for a while, I'll lose it again. And I don't know how.
Right.
It's still confusing to me exactly how to set up a model like properly so that it's easily colorable, because ideally I would just like to have like 5 colors and switch between them with hotkeys and click on shapes to color them, but then the colors, they don't go exactly where I expect them to go.
Mhm.
They just kind of like one wall will be like the entire side of the house, and if I click it, it turns one color. So then you have to split it. The splitting tools are not as like precise. Like I use this magnet snap, so everything snaps to a grid. But then when I cut with the knife tool, it's kind of freeform, and I'm just kind of lucky that I make the cuts like whenever there's like a T shape where like one wall is hitting another, I'll make a cut so that it's under the that like where it can't be seen. That's where the color switch takes place. But then the
Gotcha.
floor, there's a problem with the floor where like if 2 carpets are a different color, and I just have one big floor for everything, it's like hand making these cuts that are not perfectly straight or even, and that gets it starts to feel more messy and not as correct or somehow not as like clean and minimalist.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. The it's a fine balance with
Yeah.
yeah. Once you start to like polish something, then it becomes like out of line with the rest of the art style, and
Yeah.
yeah, overdone. Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny because if you make the right choice about not like you cut off things, you don't polish beyond a certain amount, you can save so much time, and then it looks equally nice if everything has
Right.
just the same.
Right.
Everything can be very plain. So it's a weird process to be like working on it and be like, if I work on it too much and it becomes too good, it increases the amount of work that needs to be done. So I'm
Hmm.
trying to like just do the minimum possible to cross some kind of invisible line that makes it like interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. Mine like I did a very quick like sketching class, and I'm not good at sketching at all, but
Hmm.
they one thing they said that was interesting was with pencil, you can kind of uh, keep going infinitely, like uh, adding shades and erasing and just adding in detail, and it kind of continues to look good. But with like
Hmm.
most other mediums, like marker, paint, it's for someone who's less experienced, it's often the opposite, where the more you do, the worse it gets.
Hmm.
Yeah, depends on
That's
the
true.
medium, I guess.
Yeah, that makes a lot of
Yeah,
sense. The more decisions, yeah, definitely in my art, the more decisions I make, the worse it gets.
yeah,
Sometimes once I just like took a pencil and kind of like used the side of the pencil and colored the page, and it kind of looked like a crow, and then I was like, oh, it kind of looks like a crow. So then I just kept it like that, and that was maybe one
yeah.
of my best drawings, is just like an accidental thing that smudge that looks like a crow.
Uh-huh.
And then it's like, but if I
Yeah,
tried to add anything to that, it would get worse.
yeah, you just gotta leave it. It's tricky stuff.
Well, this time we were saying we are going to talk about chess, and
Yeah.
as we've said, I would consider myself very scattered in chess. I know openings. I've done some study before, and I've played a lot of games, so I think I'm familiar with the whole scope of chess. But then in practice, I'll just like blender pieces and make random moves. I have like at this moment I have a rough opening moves that I do, but then I don't really take into account the opponent's moves so much. I just kind of move until I either see like some kind of pin or tactic, maybe like
Hmm.
low level tactics, or then I lose a piece and then I sort of could. Most games I'll just like resign as soon as I that I'm losing it all to speed it up or something.
Sure.
Sometimes maybe it's fun to like try to defend as much as possible. But I was thinking the general format this time we could play like a couple, I guess, 2+1 games. 2+1 because that will encourage us to just like move the pieces quickly and finish the games. We could play like a couple of those games. Maybe just to I was thinking the purpose of that is like to establish that whatever comments I make on the game that we're planning to analyze, like this min max game that they played that you've written up like an analysis for, we could step through that analysis. And
Sure.
I've just
Yeah.
watched that video like earlier today, and so like they have studied chess clearly less, and so I had some thoughts about like things they missed or whatever, but by demonstrating my lack of chess ability, I feel like it will establish that whatever I say is not necessarily that I'm like talking down to them, because I'm probably more at their level than anything. Uh,
Yeah, yeah, chess, it's all relative. It's yeah, I watch, the best players in the world play, and it's like some of the things they're doing and the speed with which they're doing it is kind of unimaginable to me. Yeah, I
mm,
grew up playing chess, um, and at one point I was like in the top 5 or 10 in the country for my age, and
that's cool.
um, yeah, I would like travel all around playing, and yeah, it was um, a really cool thing to do when I was younger, and I got the national master title when I was 16,
Wow.
and then yeah, I haven't really improved since then. I kind of in preparation for college and everything, I mostly stopped playing or studying, and then yeah, I didn't play a tournament for a decade, and then only quite recently, in the past like half a year, I just had a renewed interest kind of out of nowhere and started studying a ton, and I played some tournaments and did
Hmm.
fine. I think I was about the same as I was before. Um yeah, but then yeah, in the past uh few months I haven't done anything, so bit of rust, but I do want to start chess streaming. I think that'll just be a fun
Hmm.
thing to do, uh, and to sort of build my like public speaking skills and just being on the internet skills. So yeah, I did my first stream last night, and that
Wow.
was a fun experience.
That's cool.
Yeah,
How does
yeah.
the first stream go? Does anyone show up? Did you have like some friends drop in?
No, it was yeah, it was interesting. There was a one person who showed up right away. I connected it to my lead chess
Oh yeah.
account. So it like, I think it pops up on their website
Hmm.
that this person's streaming, and I have the, National Master title, so maybe that helps a little bit. Um, but yeah, I had like one person that was there the whole time and making conversation. Uh, and yeah, a few other people dropped in and out. I got a raid from a video game person of like five people, and they
Huh.
stayed for a bit.
Have
Uh,
you
yeah.
watched streamers in the past? Like, is your streaming account like established such that, or maybe do you
Yeah,
have any
no, I
relationship? Like that gaming channel must have just saw you
just
in the list
random.
somewhere.
I think they
Yeah.
saw it because I said it's my first stream, and they were just being nice. And
Hmm.
yeah,
That's cool.
yeah, I'm sort of learning what Twitch is and everything. I've watched some, but yeah, my understanding of how everything works is pretty limited. Yeah.
Yeah, chess seems like something fairly straightforward to stream. Whenever this, we were talking about this game, like it's called. This is the first time I'm trying to pronounce the title of this game, Gam Bonanza, and it's a chess
Yeah.
roguelike. Seems similar in flow to Balatro. That would be something to play
Yeah.
on stream whenever that comes out. Try to get a free
Yeah,
code, get a free game code.
that's a great idea. Yeah, that game does look really cool. It's a yeah, just a great idea if
Mm.
implemented well. But yeah, based on the trailer, it looks pretty promising.
Yeah, there should be at least a few. It looks like fun. Just the way pieces are taken, this some of the sounds seem like it could be get one into like a vibe.
Yeah, yeah, good design
Well, I
all
guess
around.
I can send a invite link on Discord here to a 2+1 game if that's
Uh,
something. Yeah, I don't know how what you can feel free to like recommend a different time control, or we don't
no,
have to
no,
play
that
games.
works.
Yeah.
That works. Yeah, I normally play Bullet on my phone, so my
Mm.
mouse speed is going to be much slower, but
Yeah, I'm not.
uh, I'm
I
okay
feel
with
like two
it.
plus one, 2+1. I just because in my mind I'm just moving. I don't really care about the quality of the move, but we
Sure.
can gift each other time. So just yeah, I could gift time now or whenever, or we could just have a different time control, I
No,
guess.
no, that's all good. No, you know what? I'm gonna grab my phone. I'll be right back,
Mhm.
and then I'll just do it on my phone, and that'll
Okay.
be much easier for me because I have a touchpad and it's yeah. I'll be right back. Join from my phone. Nice. Okay. Sorry, I played.
Yeah.
Is the screen share working?
Yeah, everything seems to be working. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. Do you want advice as you play, or just I can
Yeah, I was
just shut up and
debating what to do. I guess if we did, I guess really we should be doing like sort of more of a training game where there's no time limit and we're discussing each move. And I was going back and forth on that,
uh-huh.
but we'll see. I sort
Whatever.
of,
Whatever feels fun.
yeah, it might be interesting. These games, yeah, I'm intending them to be like short and like fairly concise. And then if
Yeah.
depending how that feels, we could launch into yeah either I guess like any sort of training game or discussion would take time away, and then we'd have to decide do we want to do this sort of like a training game where I am learning, or whether we're just like talking through the min max one, whichever one we
Hmm.
think, whichever one we feel like, I guess, once we wrap up these games.
Yeah. Yeah. Sounds good to me. yeah, you're playing great so far.
Yeah, that the opening. I guess the risk that I'm sometimes aware of in that opening is my white bishop getting trapped, and it
Mm,
didn't. So I'm always like watching for that primarily,
yeah,
and then yeah, like that was. There's like minor things that I wouldn't have wanted like the queens to exchange like that, and then my to lose my ability to castle, like stuff like that is maybe if I had a longer time control, I would be trying to avoid that kind of stuff.
sure.
And then yeah, once if things get like too out of sync, then it's where it's like enters the territory where it's very easy to blunder pieces.
Hmm.
Because yeah, I guess my main defense around not blundering pieces is if the pieces are in squares that I'm very familiar with, and then if
Right.
yeah, whenever they're scattered, then it's more like I have to analyze their positions and remember them more, and then it's just too much like room for error.
Right.
Oh, this is my
Yeah, it's
first
all.
blunder. Or no, well,
Yeah, yeah. First
my
blender.
first thing that I clearly identify as a blunder, like right
Yeah, yeah.
away.
You saw it as soon as you played it. Yeah, pretty sure. Yeah, but no, I mean, yeah, you played super. Didn't blunder anything. Played all reasonable moves up until then. Yeah. Just gonna, as the kids say, be cringe and trade everything.
That's what I do. Yeah, whenever I have that opportunity, just trade everything, leave with like
Yeah.
one major piece, and just sort of make everything like very clean angles.
Right, right. Yeah, once you're material, it's usually the simple play.
I guess we can play to the end of this first game at least,
Sure.
and I'm still very much debating what we want to do. Maybe yeah, let's see. We could do like an analysis of this game up until like the first thing that really made things go not in my favor, and
Hmm.
then I don't know how interested are you in walking through your analysis of the min max game? Like, does that feel like something that you'd it'd be interested in like revisiting,
Yeah,
or is there another
yeah. I
style of
haven't played
chess?
that in a while, but I think, yeah, I remember
Mhm.
I had fun with that. I was feeling in a real wacky mood, and I tried to make it silly.
What's funny about
Um,
it? Yeah, good victory. What's funny about
the game.
the min max one is how like I whenever I walk by any public chessboard, I check if it's like 90 degrees wrong, and I think theirs was in the
Yes.
video. And but then
Yes.
also
Yeah.
like, and then the second thing, once I sort of confirm like if it's 90 degrees wrong or not, then it's about is queen on its color, and theirs was not. And so and then like Jeffham's like following along with the board and the side, and the colors are inverted in that from that board,
Yep.
and that was pretty
Yeah.
funny. It's funny to me how like everyone sometime along the like they learn how all the pieces move and what the legal moves are, and that pawns attack, and they know about castling probably. But then it's like most people consider themselves like they're like, well, I know how the pieces move, and I know that pawns promote, and then they'll say stuff like, well, it's all why ever not promote to a queen, and they start saying things that do have answers that one comes
Right.
across like the
Right.
deeper they look into it, but it's like the average person doesn't realize that there are there are some things like the board can be 90 degrees, which is like intuitive. If anyone thinks about it, you can have it 90 degrees wrong because of especially because of the letters and numbers, or the white and the black squares. And then in terms of yeah which side, because everyone knows about like e4, and if there's openings in e4, then that means there must be some proper place for the queen and the king. And it's weird that it's almost like it doesn't occur to people that there's obviously like deeper conventions that are just as important as how the pieces move to the playing of chess. But there's a weird thing where people will play each other, and they both have the same limited knowledge, so they both like don't know what they don't know, but they like don't know the same things. And so then it's not in a typical game, it's like you never run into these questions during the game that would result in like a
Right.
deeper knowledge. Like at some point in the video, they talk about can you promote like multiple pawns, and they decided yes you could, and someone in the chat like confirmed it. But it was this, it's like a question where that's they're hitting the bounds of like you start playing the game and you run into some things that make one think what are the specific rules. But it's
Right.
funny. It's funny
Yeah.
that people don't think that they're like, well, I know how all the pieces move and how the board's set up, but it's interesting to me that when you approach a wild board that's already set up, they're not like, well, let's just double check against the computer. I'm not actually sure how did they set up the computer board even to be incorrect. It's like
Or,
did they like
yeah.
manually they like went into a blank board? Like wouldn't they just launch a game?
Yeah.
Why would they
I
have
think it
like
might be
this
also
yeah.
difficult to tell what was the king and the queen. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I think that is a funny thing that I think is a broader pattern with like when people are learning a new board game, where it's kind of like, especially one where there's like a lot of rules. They're like,
Mm.
like just we'll just hop in and like
Yeah.
figure it out as we go. And like the first time you play, it's almost a negotiation of like, are we going to really like enforce these rules or look up the rule book every single time, or are we just going to kind of agree
Mm.
on things as we go? Um,
Yeah.
and for chess, it's like, well, it is a one of those games that has stood the test of time, and you know, about everything, makes sense and is a good rule. En passant and
Mm.
stalemate may be debatable, but I think like from a game design standpoint,
Mm. I wonder
um,
about en passant. I wonder. I have the feeling that if you advanced your pawn towards an enemy line and they jumped past you, as a way of just making your pawn hit up against theirs, and then they skip by and get a pass pawn because you walked up too far. I feel like that does strike me as something that needs to be addressed, and I don't know if en passant is like the best way to do it. But
sure,
it makes me
yeah,
think of it's like a rule that's patched on as like a band-aid fix that is kind of a weird
yeah,
complicated rule. Hmm.
yeah. I think it was the latest patch. I think
Oh yeah.
I forget the history of it. I think it's like 1500s England or something. I think it was the latest patch to what we
Hmm.
now play as chess. Um, but yeah, another. I think it is also interesting. There's a lot of like chess politics stuff that's always happening that I tune in and out of. But there's a big push to make chess 960
Right.
um, a big game, which is where
Yeah.
the back row pieces are randomized, and there's 960 legal
Yeah.
configurations that could be. Some are yeah, some configurations are not allowed, but most of them are. Um,
And you can
and
still
and
castle,
the
I
benefit,
remember, was surprising to me when I looked
yes,
it up. Yeah.
yeah. And the benefit being that you don't you don't need to study openings and memorize openings. And the con being, chess has such a rich history, and openings are fun to
Mm.
latch onto for an amateur, such as myself, and sort of understand like what the professionals are doing. But yeah, it's interesting ways to make chess exciting.
Yeah, it's interesting, like from thinking from the perspective of can the audience follow along with Chess 960, especially, there isn't even like a narrative you could tell as easily about who's in the winning position and can you compare this to your own games like from an like something that the audience enjoys is being able to like see the openings and follow
Yeah,
along. And then chess
yeah,
960 is just like this higher level scattered. It starts to get into like maybe more the territory of like Dota and League of Legends, where there's all these different heroes and the audience is probably not up to speed with the exact stats of every hero, and so most of the time you're watching something that's relatable if you've played, but not you can't follow exactly what's at stake, what's about to happen, what are the possibilities, in any conflict on
Right.
the board. Yeah.
Yeah, it's yeah, the barrier to entry of like I think even with, these like hero MOBA games, it is a little hard for like someone who's never played this game before to just hop in and immediately understand what's happening, even with like good broadcasting. I think similar for chess. It is. I think you need a baseline um, understanding of things. But yeah, I think one thing that sort of the big chess corporations have done that's smart is they've started doing broadcasts that are more geared towards beginners. So now they have both, where there's
Oh, that's smart.
um, yeah, and they explain things like in
Hmm.
simpler terms, and uh, I think that that has been one small thing amongst many that has grown chess a lot in the last 5 years, including COVID and Queen's Gambit, the Netflix show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That should be true for all sports. They should have a second set of announcers that explain all the rules.
Right. Right. Yeah, I agree.
So I guess if you want to share your study, the main thing I want is that if you draw arrows on the board, I was hoping I'll be able to see them. I think that's
Oh,
true
yeah,
if
yeah.
you share a study. Yeah.
Yeah, let's see. I will go I will go to study my study and I'll send the link on the Discord. And then yeah, I wonder.
Can
So
you see
you have
mine?
a screen share of this?
Yeah, I'll,
Yes,
I'll at least see. Oh, you see
your
my arrows?
No, I don't see the
Oh,
arrows. I think there is a way to do that.
it
Maybe.
doesn't really
Oh,
matter if you
okay.
see mine, but I'm hoping, yeah, that I can, if we end up using arrows. I guess you've got some
Yeah.
arrows embedded in the analysis that will show.
True. Yeah. Yeah, I just clicked the record um, feature, which I thought might help with the arrows, but it looks like you still can't see mine.
No, it doesn't seem like it.
Interesting. Um, do a quick search. Um, hmm. Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't know how to do that live,
Yeah, we don't.
unfortunately.
We could just skip. I don't think it'll be super important.
Cool.
How did you
Yeah, sounds
address
good.
in your? Did you mirror their board?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I rotated it. Yeah, I mentioned it near the bottom of this first section that the board was unfortunately rotated incorrectly. I blame the architects. While queen on their color is a great mnemonic, a lesser known but equally important one is white on the bottom right.
Hmm. Yeah.
And that one wasn't followed. So yeah, I just rotated everything or mirrored it. Uh, yeah, so let's see. If I click through it, do you see these changes?
Actually, I don't think so either. I don't think I see changes.
Oh, interesting. Hmm. If you see that record button on the bottom
The
left, like right
bottom.
beneath the um, the bottom left of the
I wonder if it's
board.
there for me. Bottom left. I see the PGN tags, multi-board, whatever that
Okay.
means.
Let me show
Share
that.
and export.
Maybe it's just for me since I'm the owner of the study. Interesting.
It just says like other. I was clicking this info button. Other members can see your moves in real time, plus everything's saved. Spectators can view the study and talk in chat. It seems like it should just like happen by default.
Yeah, I would think. Um, so nothing's changing for you still? Well,
No, yeah, that's weird. Should I go if I go next chapter? I wonder if something about chapters, maybe I have to like follow. I'm trying to remember. I've been in studies before that are shared, and there was something maybe about like following the other person or something.
see. Yeah, I've definitely done this before because I've done some lessons uh, where this has worked, but I'm not remembering what this step is.
Yeah, maybe you have to like clone this annotation into a new study, and then we both join the same study. I wonder if like I don't know if we're in. I think yeah, we both have to be like in some kind of same instance somehow.
Yeah. Yeah. Uh, yeah, maybe I need to make the study because right now it's private.
Yeah, maybe there's some way to do like a new study from if I go study.
Clone it. Yeah, let's see. I'll try that out. My private studies. Hmm. Really don't know how to do that, fortunately.
Hmm.
Yeah, I thought the recording would work.
I wonder what that
Hmm.
means. The recording, it just records all the moves and everything that's made, and for like
Yeah,
later.
it says share changes with spectators and save them on the server.
Hmm.
Um, I thought that's what I used before to just like when someone joins the study, they can just play along with the moves I'm making.
I'll try sharing one of my random studies. I think I made a new study just now somehow.
Hmm. Oh, maybe if I invite you to the study. Okay, I just invited you
Mm-hmm.
directly.
Yeah, I think that sounds familiar. Sounds like something I've seen before.
Instead of
Then
sharing the
where?
link. All right, and then now,
I don't know if I'm in there yet. I don't see the invite.
oh,
Did you type my username? Stawstack?
hmm,
Yeah, there's
yeah.
no R. That could be when I
Oh,
registered for this site.
stop.
Yeah, that's actually a simple. I'm like Strawstack everywhere, but then on this website, either it was taken or I forgot the R, and so now it's like my one username that's missing an R.
That's funny. Okay, I think Yeah, I think maybe if you just click back into the study to spectate, it'll.
Oh, there
Um,
we go. Yeah, we're both in there now.
and do you see me playing through the game?
Somehow, no.
Ah, darn. No good.
That's weird. Well, what's the point of me
Right.
being in the, in the study if I don't get to see anything happen?
Yeah,
Why would they
yeah.
have it like
I'm
that?
not sure. Yeah. Well, alas. Um, I could share my screen. Well, then the recording would be messed up.
I think it should be good if you share on Discord, and then I'll just
Yeah.
like yeah, screen record your sharing on Discord.
All right, let's see. Try this out. Uh, maybe that's the wrong thing. Hmm. Oh yeah. Share screen. Share this window. All right. Can you see it?
Oh yeah, here we go. Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Oh, nice. Okay. Awesome. Um, all right. So, uh, yeah, so I can you still see it?
Yeah.
Nice. All right. So let's see. Forget who is white and who is black. I think.
Yeah, I remember in the video. I have the video pulled up here.
Okay. Nice. So yeah, so they started out with all book moves called a Catalan, where white plays for fianchettoing this bishop. Fianchetto is just a fancy word to put the bishop on this long diagonal that like
Yeah, I
cuts
remember
all the
that
way
word.
across the board.
Yeah. But then they
Yeah.
Leo moves it like overshoots.
Yeah, yeah, he overshoots it. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Um, yeah, so yeah, I put some notes in here just about which you certainly know about, which is the um, to control the center,
Mm.
particularly the four center squares, um, and develop your pieces off their starting squares, and castle your king to safety, and then just have fun and enjoy chess. But yeah, so Leo overshoots, and yeah, now this bishop is on h3 where it's pointing at or biting on granite, where
Yeah.
this pawn is ultra defended and it isn't going to be a target anytime soon. And the bishop would have been better served, cutting across the entire center and hitting a slightly weaker uh, square on b7. And now this diagonal becomes a little exposed for
Oh,
black
and
to
it
take
does get
advantage of as
used
well.
later as far as I remember.
Oh yeah,
Ben, yeah, that
yeah. I don't
the rook
remember
gets
it
taken
well
at some
anymore.
point.
Gotcha. Yeah,
But that
that's what
actually
happens.
equalizes the game because
Uh-huh.
black loses a rook before then, so then
Right,
that makes it
right.
go back equal.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. There is like a whole subgenre of YouTube chess that's sort of roasting beginner players
Mm.
that I think can be funny when it's done, with not with malice and consenting. I figured this was, more or less they were consenting to be made fun of a little bit, but I'm not trying to do it in a mean way at all, just for fun.
Yeah, same. That's
Um,
why I was happy we played a game establishing that I have no credibility in chess. So anything I say that sounds like roasting is not doesn't come from a position of like of any
uh-huh.
over ego on my part.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
like at this
Well, I
slightly,
think chess
yeah.
does a really interesting thing around ego where like I I I struggle now to like uh feel like competitive or like I have an ego in like almost any games
Mm,
like ever because I'm just like, well, yeah, I don't know. Like I've lost so many complete heartbreaking games after
mm.
6 hours that uh and
You're
you
desensitized.
make one wrong move. Yeah, it just really changes. It changed me a lot from a very competitive child to now just like,
Hmm.
yeah, trying to have fun.
Yeah, I've heard about
Um,
mental coaches in chess, like recover, like importantly, like recovering quickly from a victory is that's something that I struggled with a lot. Like I started playing a little bit for work, and I would be in games just against other like novice players, and suffering a defeat really like tilts you, and you just throw the next match. And I really saw like I was losing unnecessarily. Uh,
yeah, that's gonna be
yeah.
extremely tilting for sure. Yeah. Yeah, and I played, some tournaments recently and I think I was putting pressure on myself because I was getting so nervous. Like
Oh yeah.
uh, I'd never had that problem as much before, but
Hmm.
anyways, yeah, so back to this game, there was this is I put a question mark on these moves that are mistakes. So
Mm-hmm.
Black plays a5, which doesn't help them control the center and develop their pieces. So is a bit of a wasted move, though it does help them control this b4 square. So it's not the worst ever.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and knight c3, great move, controls the center. So yeah, this is another thing like beginners to do a lot
Yeah.
is like very early rook lifts,
That's what my
which
dad
are
insists on doing. I came home
uh-huh.
one vacation when I started knowing about chess, and he kept doing that. And I was like just telling him, "What's the best case scenario that you trade the rook for something, you trade it away, or you lose it? There's no, it's a valuable piece." And he's was insisting like, "Just let me try it out, like just see what happens."
Yeah,
And like
sure.
3 games, he kept doing that.
Yeah. Yeah, it is really fun to just like experiment with stuff with chess. You can try so many things and yeah. Yeah, at the beginning of the game it's almost never a good idea because there's nowhere for this rook to go and it can just become a target. And same is true for
Yeah,
queens where if they get out too early, often they just become a target and get sort of kicked
yeah.
around by minor pieces and pawns.
Yeah, it's interesting. Everything's like an interesting philosophically that like the queen is so high value that what can it do that isn't just risking itself? Like you can't trade for anything. It can only really, you'd trade for the other queen, but not much else. And unless it picks
Yeah.
up a free piece, which is you can't expect the opponent to give you a free piece. So then the queen is just wandering around using up time, and then the opponent's like developing theoretically. And
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
interesting like that you it's like you got to use a weapon that is almost like hacking where whatever like the cost of the hack, what you get in what you win from hacking has to be more than what you paid to get the stuff, or else it's not worth it. And
Sure.
so it's like
Yeah.
all the other player has to do is offer you only cheaper pieces, and then you'll never be able to take them or something like that. It's kind of cool how there's
Hmm.
chess is like a good
Yeah,
analogy for
very
a lot of stuff.
art of war. Yeah. Coded. Yeah. Yeah, there's definitely the fun thing about chess is like there are these sort of guidelines and but there are basically no hard and fast rules besides like the rules of the games themselves. But there's no like if the
Mm.
until you get to the very end game, then it becomes very technical and you have to know, the exact
Mm.
right move to do. But before that, you can be a little more artistic and
Yeah,
like
that's
there
true.
are a lot of times where a rook lift can be amazingly devastating. Um, like imagining in this position, if the pawn was already on a4 and a rook lift that brought the rook to a5 and then all the way over to h5 to attack this castled king, like there's
Mm.
situations where that could be a good idea. Um, so yeah, there's no hard and fast rules for anything,
Yeah, I
which I think
remember
is fun.
there's at least one famous game where a grandmaster sacrifices their queen for almost nothing for positional reasons, and then they go on to like checkmate another grandmaster because
Yeah,
they just
yeah. There's
saw,
one
yeah, an
famous
advantage. Yeah.
Bobby Fischer game where that
Mm.
features a early queen sack and
Yeah.
um, yeah, good positional advantage. Um, so yeah, so then is this Ben? Ben plays
Yeah,
or
Leo's
no,
playing white. Yeah.
Leo plays a4. Yeah, which is similarly not a great move, not fighting for the center, and it really gives up this b4 square. So yeah, rook c6, as mentioned, uh, you also don't want to generally you don't want to move the same piece twice. You kind of want to get all your pieces out into the battle and castle your king, and
Mm.
then you can start maneuvering. Um, so b3 defending the pawn seems fine, and then yeah, knight d5 just hangs the knight for free. um,
Yeah, and they mention
and
that they both see that, and Jeffem sees that. Jeffem is like remote watching the game,
uh-huh.
and they all mention it. And so for whatever reason, they decide to maybe try to keep it interesting.
Oh,
Why they don't just
interesting.
take
No,
immediately? Yeah,
maybe
but
it
then
was
they do
like
end up
they thought that the
taking it.
rook could take on their knight, but then I guess they
Oh
just didn't
yeah, they
see that it
do.
was defended.
Right. Yeah, they mentioned that, and they don't really mention that it's defended. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
The result anyway, though, like
uh,
yeah, the horses trade, and then but Leo still wins the horse and the rook, so it's kind of the same material loss occurs, or even kind of a worse material loss. Like the horses trade off, and then a rook is lost, rather than just an immediate loss of a knight. So it's almost worse. It's like yeah,
yeah,
like
yeah,
Leo
it's
gets more
worse.
by delaying a capture.
Yeah, yeah. Um, yeah. So I start to mislead with my analysis in favor of jokes and yeah, I said declining it was a double exclam to uh, just to
Oh yeah,
deal psychological warfare, not take the free piece.
yeah.
So
That's a
yeah, this
good angle to
analysis I
take,
totally
because yeah,
sucked
what it's hard
at.
to yeah. It's like the objective is like provide knowledge and entertainment, and if the
Yeah,
chess, it's if you can't do that by direct analysis of the chess, then just do that by any means possible.
right, right. Yeah, yeah, it does kind of switch back and forth between the knowledge sharing and the entertainment, but hopefully it's mostly clear. Um, yeah, so F5 and yeah, so they should have saved their hanging knight, but
The one thing though is
um,
once these pawns trade, this is starting to get to a position that would just like confuse me, and then there's a good chance I would lose
yeah,
just because of the chaos.
mm,
And so that's like a legitimate strategy. If one of them was playing
yeah,
me and this sort of occurred, then all of a sudden I would just be kind of anxious that I'm missing something the whole time.
right, right, because it's not like a position you've seen before.
Mm.
Yeah, there's an interesting like study done where they showed chess players at different levels positions and then like showed it to them for 2 seconds, hide the board, and then asked them to um, recreate the position like after 10 seconds or something.
Mm.
And it's interesting that so it sort of scales as you would expect, um, where like more experienced players can usually perfectly recreate the position just having seen it after 2 seconds.
Yeah.
And the less experienced, they get a few things wrong, and beginners, it's they get a ton wrong. But then if you give a position that like doesn't make any sense,
Yeah, random
like it just would
piece
never
placement
happen.
completely. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Like then it evens out, and like the
Hmm.
grandmasters don't have any advantage really, or that it's very minimal because there's no pattern to it, so it just becomes
Yeah.
a memory game like anything else.
Yeah, it's
Um,
fascinating that the way it seems that good chess players remember the board is through the relationships of the pieces and not like the absolute squares that they're on.
right, right, yeah, super super interesting. Um, I think. Yeah. So
And
now,
this, my thinking here was, I was told like always take towards the center of the board. And so
right.
then with this choice, yeah, I was wondering what they would do here. I guess taking with the knight makes the most sense. I never thought about that because that preserves pawn structure. Uh,
Yeah, yeah,
mhm.
yeah. Developing the pieces is the number one here for sure. And yeah, if the knight wasn't there, then taking with the B pawn is better for pawn structure
It is
reasons.
interesting, like seeing the resulting position. Like if that knight takes, it looks very clean. The knight is developed. It's like as if that's a move you would make off the beginning of the game is put the knight there. And if you can take a piece and do it, it seems that everyone almost would agree that look that like the pawns stay flat, the knight's out. That look, if you just showed someone that, they would rank that position as nice looking and just by also happens to be good. But if you showed them like the broken pawn structure, it looks less cohesive, and it's almost like
Right,
if people are better at just envisioning what is the board going to look like, is it going to look pretty or not when after the move is made, that would give them some ability to just say what is better by instinct. But people, I guess, can't do that automatically. They can't visualize the board, and also
right.
they
Yeah,
wouldn't necessarily. But I think they would share my same ratings of what looks nicer, which is what interests me. And
right. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. I totally agreed. Yeah, it is the they just call it straight up visualization, and like it's one of the I don't know 3 or so sort of main skills that you can train, and like the for intensive training for like youngsters, visualization training, they'll give them like a really hard uh, in-game study puzzle that like you need every move correctly, and you need to sort of visualize it out 10 moves, and they won't show them the board. They'll just say where the pieces are,
Hmm.
just to force even more visualization. And yeah, the best players will do that for hours, and it's super exhausting, but uh, very good training. Um,
That's cool too. That chess is a game that if people get good enough at that, they can play it without a board or pieces, because it's such a fun game sometimes. And the fact that the human mind can train to play it with no equipment at all means that
right.
if you're just stuck on a desert island with another person who you can play chess in their mind together, you can literally just play chess and you don't have to have anything.
Yeah,
Is kind
you're
of a cool.
set.
Yeah, it's like
That is a nice
maybe
feature.
I wonder, is it the most complicated game that could be played in one's mind that we have? I don't know of many other, because
Okay,
you can't play like cards or stuff like
that's
that or
interesting.
Go
Yeah.
in mind. Yeah,
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I guess yeah, there's Go and Shogi and uh
yeah. Does
yeah,
anyone play
other complex
blindfold Go?
versions.
That would be weird.
Yeah, that sounds like it would be
Just like
very difficult. I
just
have no
yeah.
idea really. Yeah.
But Ben said in this video that he played Go a lot when he was younger. I wonder what his Go level is.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I forgot
Mhm.
that. Yeah. Yeah,
Mhm.
that's a very cool game as well. Um, yeah, my father played a lot of Go.
Mm.
You know. um, what was I gonna say? Oh yeah, with blindfold chess, I do have a lot of fond memories, like on car rides, like to and from chess tournaments with a friend,
Mm.
just playing. We'll just like take out a clock and without a board and play like
Wow.
blindfold. Just like yeah,
And were you
good
you were
times.
able to just do that with ease for the full game? Was there any like fully to the
Yeah,
end
yeah,
the whole thing? That's cool.
yeah. I was always like pretty good at blindfold. Probably now I'm a little rusty. Uh, at my peak, I could do like 3 games at once
Wow.
or like little simuls and I think that was always like a relative strength of mine was the visualization, but
Mm.
now I don't know. I haven't tried in a long time. um,
That's super
probably be a lot
fascinating. I was
worse.
going to mention earlier that I heard to achieve like the higher levels of chess, you essentially have to study, like, you have to look up who you're going to play in a tournament and study them individually and find like possible opening lines that they haven't seen and then play those intentionally to try to get them into a position they just haven't seen before. And that's, people say, if you don't do that, you just can't, like, it's no longer about being good at chess or like playing 3 games at once in your head. Like, it's just about the actual individual sitting before you and what lines they've seen and haven't seen, and pick one that goes against all intuition as much as possible, and
Uh-huh.
then memorize that and just hope that, like, have backup strategies and stuff. But it's, if you want to win the game, you have to like find there's that individual's weakness and stuff. And that seems
Yeah,
that seems
I
like
would
a different
say
skill than, it's no longer about individual study, it's about strategizing specifically and having a team at some point or something like that. And that seems,
yeah, there's
it's interesting how the skill
fascinating.
just becomes different. It doesn't seem like it's along the same, like one wouldn't just naturally start doing that. It's, you have to very intentionally change your behavior in a way that's different to keep getting
Yeah, yeah.
higher ranking. Yeah.
It is I think that is a factor, but really only at the very, very highest levels.
Oh yeah.
Like in my opinion, I think like they do that, the grandmasters and really everybody will try. If you're playing in a tournament that isn't an open where you know your opponents in advance. So a lot of tournaments you don't know your opponent until like 10 minutes before the round, and then you can't
Mm.
do that. But for the top players, they do know, and they will try to prepare things. But even then, I think it's like I don't think it's a huge factor, and it's more about like they will do a ton of home analysis to like prepare little surprises
Mm.
in specific opening lines. So that like for the top players, they'll have like a whole like bag of tricks, if you will, that they're like ready to unleash in a tournament setting. And it's sort of like the top players are becoming so general now where they can play like almost any
Mm.
opening. So they're really hard to prepare for specifically. Um, but you do see, a lot of like home preparation where they are trying to be the first one to surprise their opponent and take them out of something they've looked at with the computer because the computers are just so good. But I do think like even then like I don't think Magnus Carlsen, who's still uh, quite a bit better than the number 2 in the world, um, he he does prepare a lot, but he's not the most prepared uh,
Mm.
of all the players. So it is just like one factor that I think only matters or mostly matters just to the very top players, and everybody else it's I think a little. I mean, I do it like I played in a round robin tournament, or not a round robin, but it was like where you knew your opponents in advance and you played once a week. And I would always look up at, if there were any games of my opponent in the database and try and figure out
Oh
what
yeah.
to play. And it's like I would do it, but like, did it help? Like, probably not much compared to if I had just, done more tactics and sharpen my own skills. But yeah. Anyways, sorry to ramble. It's
Oh,
I
no
can
worries.
talk about chess for
Yeah, I was
ages.
debating whether I want to ramble more about something else myself, actually. And maybe I'll bring up this one thing, actually. Yeah, I guess if we,
Sure.
if we, as we cross our 1 hour like time, we can decide how much further we want to go, depending on your schedule, I guess. But yeah, something I wanted to bring up was the coolest thing that I saw in high level chess when I was into it a couple of years ago was Magnus Carlsen playing like Nepo, or his full name like
Uh-huh.
Nepo. Is it Neponichi? I
Yeah.
never.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was like game six. I just happened to know like I just remember everyone was talking about game six. I think it was, and it went on for
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
so many hours, and it came down to Magnet. Like it was a drawn game, and then Nepo made some move that enabled a possible victory, but to do it, Carlsen had to, I think it was, escort a pawn across the field with the exact right configuration of three other like minor pieces. And
Uh-huh.
I I saw, I watched it, and I watched like reviews and stuff of it, and I was just wondering still. I don't know if this is probably not like an answerable question. I wouldn't expect like anyone to be able to answer it, but just like how, like, it's some mixture of skill and experience and intuition on his part that he was able to find. Like people said, there's only one configuration that gets this pawn across the board, and he found it and then executed it. And that's after like
Yeah.
10 hours or more of chess. And it was just interesting to see that, because you could just frame that as like a puzzle to anyone, like find the
Right.
orientation of pieces that, and it wouldn't, it's like hard to even prove that that's what that is, because it's like a knight and a bishop and how they're moving, and the pattern of movement is so complicated, and thinking like where
Yeah.
can the enemy go. That was just very, that was interesting to see play like that happen, where
Yeah.
it's like these people have such a command of the movement of pieces that they're just ready to like find uh, the correct orientation of arbitrary pieces for an arbitrary task, and then sort of know that this is going to work. And yeah, very, and it comes out of like a game that is drawn, and then like there's like a king move, and then it's like, okay, now it's not
Yeah.
drawn anymore. And then they like go
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
30 moves later. Yeah, it's just funny
Yeah.
to see stuff
Magnus.
like that play. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he's next level in terms of, yeah, I think he's, in my opinion, inarguably the greatest endgame player of all time,
Mm.
and maybe the best, greatest player of all time, period. Um, but yeah, his command of end games is, it comes so intuitively to him. Like his calculating skills are, you know, incredibly good, but I think he would readily admit there is a few players that can calculate, you know, even
Mm.
faster and deeper than him. Um, but his intuition, and particularly in end games, is, you know, just unparalleled. And it's so many times it'll just be a sort of drawn game, this end game, and Magnus just grinds them down, and they make one little slip up, and then he just wins. And it's the same story every time, and it's amazing to see him do it to, the other best players in the world, like, consistently.
That's funny too,
Yeah.
that it becomes like a physical, how long can you mentally hold on for at the end of the day. That it's,
Yeah.
someone was saying that in a tournament, that if you just, you'll have these losing positions, and if you just make the opponent spend another hour or two at the board, they'll slip up, because who could stay focused for 2 hours of anything. And it's interesting
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
it's once again not as, it's still about a lot of chess skill, but you can tilt things in your favor by just delaying, which is also like a interesting analogy battle tactic. Just make the opponent wait until they're bored and then attack.
Definitely. Yeah. Yeah. Psychological and mental, physical stamina, like it really comes into play on the longer matches, and for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
but yeah.
Well, yeah. I can get back to our our original programming. um,
Yeah, I don't want to
where are we?
delay you.
No, I'm all good.
Uh,
Yeah, I have no fixed schedule. I can go as long as you'd like. I'm always happy to talk about chess. So just let me know what a good cutoff
yeah.
is.
I guess I'll set a thing for 15 minutes and we can go a bit faster. And if we don't make it to the end, that's fine. Uh,
Sounds
but
good.
yeah, I guess
Yeah.
the goal has been achieved. Of we had an interesting conversation so far. So
Right.
even though we
I
kept
hope
thinking
so.
we would do this analysis as
Yeah.
the main part, it doesn't matter if we actually did
Yeah.
it. Or
Uh-huh. Yeah, I can, yeah, on any chess topic, it's like I can, talk about it for endlessly. So, well, back into it. So,
well, you can do a
let's see.
24-hour stream later tonight if you want to talk
Yeah.
about chess.
Yeah, I think, yeah, I will stream tonight. I think that'll be
Oh yeah,
fun.
this move. Yeah, a lot of these moves, I'm happy that I'm able to also see some, like, knowing a bit more, I
Right.
guess, about chess. Yeah, like, yeah, breaking the, like, moving the pawn. Yeah, just kind of blocking the bishop, and you want sort of a pawn chain, if anything, and also there's a lot of pieces they could develop. Uh,
Right. Yeah, yeah, want to activate your pieces, ideally. Yeah, Queen F6. Yeah, normally queen moves aren't great, but this is a pretty good square for the queen, and it attacks the rook.
and that's something that
So
I
I'm
would
kind
miss. These long,
of uh-huh.
like a subtle move
The
like that
long
with a
neck.
chaos position, and it's all across the board. I would blunder my rook in this situation. I
Right.
wouldn't see that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, those are tough. Um, yeah, so Leo dropped it back to even material. A lot of times like I think yeah, beginner games are really exciting too because it's like you never know what's going to happen. And, um,
Yeah.
yeah. Oh, yeah. I wanted. So they mentioned like giant speed chess where you have to go and hit the clock, and that is a thing that has been done by the chess content creators that be. Um, yeah. B5. I just said yeah. Got to develop the pieces. Knight f3 is a great move.
I feel like that's what
Uh,
chess boxing should use, a giant board with a clock that you have to physically hit to
yeah.
keep the spirit
Yeah.
of
Little cardio
physicality. Yeah.
within
Yeah.
the. Yeah, there's a lot you can do with that, I think. Let's see. Yeah, Bishop A3. Yeah, I think yeah, Bishop A3 is I think a good move. Uh, just getting ready to castle and offers this trade. Yeah, you could yeah maybe put the bishop somewhere else, but it doesn't yeah have a perfect square or anything. So yeah, Rook F1. So yeah, castling would have been the same effect, but a little better because your king would be a little safer on G1 compared to E1. Yeah, 96 brings the knight out. Yeah, G5 is a good move because now the bishop is back in the game, and this Isak pawn is a real target now because it can't be defended by any other pawn.
Mm.
I gave knight C5 an exclam because it centralizes the knight, um, and is probably the best move in the position, or one of the best. And
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of hard to find once it gets to these like complicated middle games. Um, in the opening, there's a lot of good moves, but in the middle games, it can get a lot tougher.
Yeah. Every
Uh,
move can reveal a weakness inadvertently. And that's what's so scary
yeah.
for me. Like, in these positions, it's so hard to take into account all the different intersecting lines whenever, yeah, any piece is moved.
Uh-huh. Yeah. It gets chess is complicated. um, yeah. So Leo just blunders the queen in one move, as
Mm.
happens. So yeah, a lot of I like I said uh, time to resign, but no, because they're both beginners, so anything can happen, and everything does
Yeah.
happen.
Yeah,
So
this
yeah,
game
D3.
was turned out to be a good game from how it kept swinging back and forth,
Right.
with each person. Yeah.
Yeah, it really goes places. Uh, yeah, these are all fine moves. Yeah, I mean, once Ben's up a queen, so um, everything's winning, but it's just a matter of figuring out how to do that. Uh, and let's see. Yeah, so I think Leo did a good job of just creating some complications, which is generally what you want to do when you're losing is just make it hard and make it complicated and
Mm.
give your opponent a lot of decisions to make so that they spend time. This wasn't a timed game, but that can be a good strategy when you're
They kept
losing.
talking about the sunlight. They were trying to beat the sunlight.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah, I haven't watched it in a while. I don't remember.
Yeah, I just watched it, and they make a
Yeah.
joke that the sunlight is like coming across the board, and they're like, any black piece the light touches becomes white.
Yeah, that's a good mechanic.
Yeah, here
Uh,
your two arrows before they showed if the rooks exchange and then the queen would sort of fork the king and the knight. That was one I've been doing like Puzzle Storm in Lichess,
uh-huh.
and so I'm
Nice.
primed to see these kind of. This is a classic like Lichess Puzzle Storm moment where it's like, oh yeah, exchange, fork, take the knight. I think that's
Right,
what ended
right.
up. Yeah.
Yeah, those are huge. Yeah, for I mean, my level included, like all amateurs, it's like just doing a bunch of tactics training is uh, so crucial. Just being able to
Mm-hmm.
see the two move tactics. Um, all right, so I said we're going into the end game, and but yeah, so black is still up a rook, so should be able to clean up. Um, two, nice move. So
It was
now
cool too that they
basically,
the pawns start that's like a pass pawn. It starts to put pressure, and that's a cool feature of this game as well. The fact that this thing makes its way up there.
right, yeah. So it's the having a pass pawn in the end games is a good thing to have. And in this case, because of the material advantage where black's up a rook, basically, if I were playing black here, I could just pre-move, this pawn all the way to the end of the board, and there's basically nothing white can do to stop it. And you just make a queen and then go checkmate. Um, so yeah, he starts off with that. Um, yeah, white plays this nice knight
Right.
fork that wins some material, but he's still losing. Um, and yeah, d4 is a good move because it's I think literally like the only way that he could win from this position is to
Hmm.
rely on black hanging this rook for free. So black could,
Right.
of course, just take, but he misses it because they're probably trying to end the stream quickly and move quickly. Um, yeah, so he wins the rook for free. Uh,
Oh yeah, I never thought about that part. I was thinking, yeah, like the exchanging the knight for the rook, but the fact that he gets it for free
yeah,
there, and that makes a difference. I wasn't even. Yeah, I didn't think about that.
right. Yeah, yeah. I mean, maybe if he just took it, you know, black wouldn't have noticed that he could just take it with the king, but
Right.
yeah, who knows? Yeah, so black needs the queen, and yeah, so yeah, here it would have been way easier for black if they just took this pawn,
Right.
because now this pawn is sort of white's only hope to make a queen. Um, but yeah, they're still winning, but now it's just a little harder. So like here, for instance, playing this check and then just winning the pawn should be good enough.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, they let white create a queen, and now all bets are off. It's a really it's a really complicated position. Um,
Is
Yeah,
there? I
I
was
don't
trying
even
to
know.
see if there was like a checkmate that White had. I think there's a move where White has a mate in one, as far as I could tell.
Yeah, there was a mate in one. Yeah, after Queen takes E5, there's a mate in two, which Leo starts with Queen G7 and then just had
Oh
to
yeah,
follow it up with Queen D7 here would have been
right.
checkmate. Um,
Those
and
kind of
yeah,
moves
I
are
wonder
hard when
what.
it's like not on a computer. Then you make that move, and it's like it's hard to believe because it's such an intricate
Uh-huh.
looking checkmate that it's like if the computer tells you the game's over, then it makes sense. But in real life, it's like a baffling moment where it's like, is this checkmate? I can't believe, it's like hard to even,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I once had a extremely embarrassing moment when I was much younger, but I was, well past being good enough where this really shouldn't happen, but I thought I had checkmated my opponent and, extended my hand and said good game, and they said that's not a checkmate. I still have a move. And yeah, uh,
It was
happens to the
worth a
best of us.
shot.
Yeah, yeah. It's like, oh, very embarrassing. Um, yeah, so he won the queen, which yeah, he couldn't checkmate him, but he won the queen, still good. And yeah, now white's completely winning. Starts taking all the pieces. And yeah, around here, I think they just stopped.
Yeah,
Um,
they
yeah,
did like some kind of speed play, they said, and they just tried to play like faster. But then yeah, at some point
yeah,
he
yeah.
just grabs the
They
queen
did
and
it.
charges the king like by running across
Yeah,
the
yeah. Which we all came to see. Yeah.
It is interesting
Um,
sometimes that like beginners, one thing they don't know is maybe how to checkmate with limited pieces, and then they
right.
can't they can't figure it out in the moment, and that's fascinating sometimes.
Yeah, yeah. That is a yeah, and it's also interesting to me to see what people are drawn to in chess. Like I know for me, sometimes I'll be really into learning like intricate rook end games. And it's
Mm.
like, and then other times I'll just find that like to be the most boring thing to study. And it's like even in a singular game of chess, like there's so many like you can do opening study where you just try and, learn some openings really well or tactics or there's so many different facets to it that can all help your overall game, but can just draw you in for, at different times. Or yeah, I think that's just an interesting part of chess to me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
one time I studied like bishop knight mate,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
then
I think that one's a fun one. Like it's fun to learn.
I was trying to do it
Yeah.
like in a game on Lee Chess against a random person. And so I would, if I had an opportunity to promote, I would promote sometimes, or I would like toss, I'd
Uh-huh.
let them eat my queen just so I could get. And sometimes I did it a couple times. I got just a bishop and a knight on the board with my like, so the setup was good. But then in the moment, it's hard. Like the time control would be low, and it would be hard to execute the complicated like mating strategy in the limited time. And sometimes it was hard to keep them from resigning. But sometimes
Right.
uh, if you can if you can like quickly get just those pieces, they're interested. Like they think you're not going to be able to mate them, so they keep playing. But then I end up not being able to because it's too hard
Uh-huh.
to do it. It's too hard to do it under
It was
pressure.
hard. Yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's one you can even do with a computer. Because yeah, I
Yeah.
think most of the time computer training is very boring to me at least, because they don't really play like humans. But once they have a bear king, it's like, well, it makes no difference.
Hmm.
So, yeah.
Yeah, with I did it several times with the computer, and like the hard part is getting the king to the side of the board, and then there's like a pattern that I was pretty good at, but in real life they move so sporadically that it's hard to create that momentum to get them like to the side of the board and then like lock into what's the
Right.
pattern. Yeah.
Right.
And there's
Yeah,
some
it's
kind
a
of
fun one.
50, is there a 50 move rule where if
Hmm.
there's no pawn move or something in 50 moves, then it's auto
Yes.
draw.
Then it's a draw. Yeah.
Yeah.
In tournaments like it can get really hairy where because if you're in time trouble, or low on time, you don't need to notate your moves. But to be able to claim the 50 move rule, you need to be notating. So then,
Mm.
you can call over like a tournament director to like count for you, and it can get a little contentious. Um, yeah, there's one very, in my opinion, cool end game where if you have so normally if you have two knights and a king versus a king, it's a draw, because you can't force their king into the corner without stalemating them.
Right.
But if they have a pawn, you can sometimes, depending on where
Mm.
the pawn is on the board, you can checkmate because you force them into the corner while your knight is like blocking their pawn, and then you move the knight out of the way. So then they have a move,
Hmm.
and they're not being stalemated,
Oh
and then
yeah.
the other knight comes in and checkmates. And I that's like a very sort of esoteric one, but I got it in a tournament game once
Wow.
and managed to pull it off. And that was one of my
That's cool.
prideful games of my life because I think maybe my opponent didn't know it was possible, or yeah, so they were a little unaware. Yeah,
That's cool.
yeah.
Well, I guess that wraps up this recording. There's a Godot meetup right now in this Godot server. There's one person in their audio channel. I could stop this recording and we can go join that person if you want to. If you are interested in, I've never joined this thing before. I was gonna join it for the first time. It started at like technically 6:30 p.m. today, but there's
Oh
a
yeah,
maybe I'll drop in there and see what's up with that person that's in the channel.
sure.
It's
Yeah, I'm
this
down to
link
join.
here. It's like the server with the red Godot. I think you sent me this server, so I guess you have that server.
Okay,
But yeah,
gotcha.
I'll
Nice.
I'll end this recording
Yeah.
then.